The Vex Empire had ruled the Outer Rim for 300 years. Their red-hulled warships moved like deadly shadows across star systems, demanding tribute from every world they found. Admiral Krall stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Blood, Talon, watching his fleet of 200 ships prepare for another easy conquest. The target was a small mining colony on planet Blue 7. Intelligence reports said the humans had no military presence there, just civilian miners and their families. It would be over in hours. "Sir, we're picking up something strange," reported Lieutenant Vex at the sensor station. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he studied his screens. What kind of strange? Krall's voice was sharp. He had claws instead of fingers, and they clicked against his command chair. "There's a ship. Just one ship ... moving toward us from the planet's shadow." Krall laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "One ship? Against our entire fleet? These humans must be even more foolish than we thought." The view screen flickered to life, showing the approaching vessel. What they saw made the entire bridge fall. Silent, the human warship was massive. Not just big massive in a way that hurt to look at. It was black as space itself, with strange angular designs that seemed to bend light around them. Red lights pulsed along its hull like a heartbeat. The ship was easily 3 times larger than Krall's flagship. "Sir, ... Vex's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm reading power signatures that don't make sense. The energy output is off our charts." "Impossible," Krall snarled. "Run the scans again." But the readings were the same. The human ship was generating more power than Krall's entire fleet combined. "Admiral," came a voice from the communication station. "The human ship is hailing us." "Put them through," Krall ordered, though his confidence was starting to crack. The view screen changed to show a human face. The creature had only 2 eyes, like most primitive species. But there was something in those eyes that made Krall's blood run cold. The human looked calm. Too calm. "This is Captain Ross of the UE's Vengeance," the human said in perfect Vex language. "You are trespassing in human space. Turn around now, and you might live to see tomorrow." Krall's fear turned to rage. "You dare threaten the Vex Empire? We are 200 ships strong. You are 1. Captain Ross smiled, and that smile was scarier than any weapon. "1 is all we need." The communication ended. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked his second-in-command. Commander Nix. Krall stared at the human ship on his screen. Something was wrong. Very wrong. In all his years of conquest, no single ship had ever challenged his fleet. No species had ever been so confident when facing impossible odds. "Run a full tactical analysis," he ordered. "I want to know everything about that ship." Minutes passed. The tactical officer, a young Vex named Tor, looked up from his station, with fear in all 4 eyes. "Sir, I can't get clear readings on their weapon systems. There's some kind of interference. But what I can see, ... He paused, swallowing hard. "Sir, they have weapons we've never encountered before. Energy signatures that don't match anything in our databases." "And their defenses?" Krall asked. "Unknown, sir. Their hull seems to absorb our scanning beams. It's like they're made of shadow." Krall looked around his bridge. His crew, veterans of 100 battles, were all staring at the human ship with growing fear. He had never seen them like this. The human ship began to move closer. It didn't rush toward them like an attacking vessel. It moved slowly, deliberately, like a predator that knew its prey had nowhere to run. "Sir," Vex called out, his voice cracking. "I'm detecting more ships." "More ships? Where?" "Everywhere, sir. They're decloaking all around us." The view screen split into multiple images. Human warships were appearing from empty space. They're cloaking. Systems shutting down one by one. Each ship was different. but all carried the same aura of deadly power. How many? Crowl whispered, double quotes, 50, No, 70, sir. They keep appearing. I count over 100 human warships, all surrounding our fleet. Admiral Crowl, conqueror of star systems, destroyer of civilizations, felt something he had never felt before in his long military career. Fear, pure. Absolute fear. The Vex fleet found itself trapped in a sphere of human warships. Each human vessel was unique, some sleek and fast, others massive and heavily armored. But they all shared one thing, an aura of controlled violence that made the space around them feel electric with danger. Admiral Crowl tried to maintain his composure, but his claws were digging gouges in his command chair. Around him, his bridge crew worked with nervous energy, their movements quick and jerky. Status report, he barked. Sir, we're completely surrounded, reported Commander Nix. Human ships on all vectors. They're maintaining distance, but, sir, they're not powering weapons. Not powering weapons? Crowl's confusion mixed with his fear. Then what are they doing? Lieutenant Vex looked up from his sensors, his face pale. Sir, they're watching us. Just watching. Like they're studying us. The feeling was worse than being under direct attack. The Vex were predators. They understood aggression, violence, the heat of battle. But this cold, calculating observation was something else entirely. Open a channel to the lead ship, Crowl ordered. Captain Ross appeared on screen again, still wearing that unsettling smile. Behind him, the human bridge was a study in calm efficiency. No panic, no rushed movements. Just quiet professionals doing their jobs. Admiral Crowl, Ross said, somehow knowing his name without being told. I see you've noticed our friends. Impressive, isn't it? The human Third Fleet, Battle Group 7. We were just passing through when we heard you were planning to visit. Our mining colony. This is Vex Space. Crowl snarled, trying to regain some authority. We conquered this sector 50 years ago. Conquered from whom? Ross asked mildly. The Talani? Yes, we heard about that. Nasty business. What you did to their homeworld. But the Talani asked us for protection 3 years ago. We've been watching this sector ever since. The words hit Crowl like a physical blow. The humans had been watching. For 3 years, they had been in Vex space without being detected. Impossible, he whispered. Commander Vale, Ross said, speaking to someone off-screen. Show the Admiral what impossible looks like. The space around the Vex fleet suddenly changed. What had appeared to be empty space began revealing more ships. Not human warships, something else. Massive structures that had been hidden, cloaked beyond any technology the Vex knew existed. Those are mining platforms, Ross explained casually. The humans on Blue 7 aren't just miners, Admiral. They're military engineers. They've been building something special for us. The structures were enormous, each one larger than a Vex battle station. As Crowl watched in horror, weapon ports began opening along their hulls. Hundreds of them. Thousands. You see, Admiral, humans have a saying. Speak softly and carry a big stick. We've been speaking very softly in this sector. Now you get to see our stick. Sir? Tor called out from the tactical station. His voice barely controlled panic. Those platforms ... They're armed with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Each one could take out 50 of our ships. How? Many platforms? Crowl asked, though he dreaded the answer. 12, sir, all targeting us. The math was simple and terrifying. The platforms alone could destroy his entire fleet 6 times over. Add the human warships, and it wasn't even a contest. What do you want? Crowl asked, his voice hollow. Simple, Ross replied. Leave, go back to Vex space, and never return. And take a message to your high command. Humanity is no longer prey. And if we refuse? Ross's smile disappeared. For the first time, Krall saw the true predator behind the human's calm exterior. Then you'll discover why every species that has ever fought humans has either joined us or ceased to exist. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of ship systems. Krall looked around at his crew. These were battle-hardened warriors who had never known defeat. Now they stared at their instruments with the blank expressions of prey animals caught in a trap. "Sir," Commander Nix whispered, "your orders?" Krall closed his 4 eyes and made the hardest decision of his military career. "Signal the fleet." "We're withdrawing." "Sir?" Nix couldn't hide his shock. "You heard me. Full retreat. Maximum speed." As the Vex fleet began to turn away, Captain Ross appeared on screen one final time. "Admiral, one more thing. Tell your high command that this was a warning. The next time we meet, we won't be so diplomatic." The human warships held their positions. As the Vex fleet fled, their dark hulls seeming to absorb the light of distant stars. The journey back to Vex Prime took 14 days. 14 days of shame, confusion, and growing dread that settled over the entire fleet like a plague. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for generations now moved in tight formation, jumping. At every sensor ghost in shadow, Admiral Krall spent most of the journey in his private quarters, staring at recordings of the human encounter. He played the sensor data over and over, trying to understand what had happened. The power readings still made no sense. The weapon signatures were unlike anything in Vex databases. It was as if the humans had developed technology centuries ahead of everyone else. But how? Intelligence reports said humans were a young species, barely 200 years into space travel. They should have been primitive, weak, easy to conquer like so many others. "Sir," came Commander Nix's voice over the "Come. We're approaching Vex Prime. High Command is requesting an immediate report." Krall straightened his uniform and walked to the bridge. Through the view screen, he could see the massive red planet that served as the heart of the Vex Empire. Orbital defense platforms surrounded it like a metal moon, and the space lanes were filled with warships from across the galaxy. Looking at it now, after seeing the human fleet, Krall felt a chill. The Vex defenses looked almost primitive in comparison. "Take U.S. to the High Command Station," he ordered. The High Command Station was a massive structure that housed the Empire's military leadership. Krall had been here many times to receive congratulations for successful conquests. Today felt very different, supreme. Admiral Dex waited in the briefing chamber, along with the other members of the War Council. Dex was old, even by Vex standards, his red skin bearing the scars of 100 battles. His 8 arms gestured impatiently as Krall entered. "Admiral Krall." Dex's voice was like grinding stone. "Explain to me how a fleet of 200 ships failed to conquer a mining colony." "Supreme Admiral, we encountered unexpected resistance." "Resistance from miners?" Krall activated the holographic display and began showing the sensor recordings. The War Council leaned forward as images of the human warships appeared in the air before them. The room fell silent. "This is what we faced," Krall said quietly. 123 human warships, 12 armed mining platforms, and weapons technology we don't understand. General Vac, the Empire's chief strategist, studied the data with his 6 eyes. "These power readings, they can't be accurate. I verified them personally," Krall replied. "Each human ship generated more energy than 5 of ours." "Impossible," muttered Admiral Rex. "Humans are primitives." Our intelligence reports are wrong," Krall interrupted. "Dead wrong. These humans aren't primitives. They're the most advanced military force I've ever encountered." Supreme Admiral Dex stood slowly, his great bulk casting shadows across the chamber. "You're telling me that humans, who we first detected, 50 years ago, have built a fleet capable of destroying ours? I'm telling you that what we saw wasn't even their main fleet. The human captain called it Battle Group 7. That implies at least 6 other groups of similar size. The implications hung in the air like poison gas. If the humans had 7 battle groups of that size, they commanded a force larger than the entire Vex military. Show me their weapons, Dex ordered. That's the problem, sir. They never fired them. We don't know what their capabilities are. They didn't fire? Then how do you know they could have destroyed us? Crowell pulled up the tactical analysis. Because they told us they could, and everything else about their claims proved accurate. Sir, these humans knew things about us that should have been impossible. They knew my name. They knew about our conquest of the Talani homeworld. They'd been watching us for years without us knowing. General Vac leaned back in his chair. If they've been watching us, then they know our fleet positions, our strength, our weaknesses. Yes, Crowell said simply. The War Council exchanged glances. For the first time in Vex history, they were facing an enemy that might be superior to them in every way. What were their demands? Supreme Admiral Dex asked. Simple. Stay out of human space. And they sent a message for High Command. Humanity is no longer prey. No longer prey, Dex repeated slowly, as if they were prey before. Sir, I think we've made a serious mistake. We've been treating humans like every other species we've encountered, but they're not like the others. They're something new. Supreme Admiral Dex was quiet for a long moment, processing the information. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that filled the chamber. Send word to all fleet commanders. Full military alert. And get me everything we have on human technology and capabilities. He paused, staring at the holographic display of human warships. It seems the galaxy just became a much more dangerous place. Captain Ross stood in the observation deck of the UES Vengeance, watching the last of the Vex ships disappear into hyperspace. The stars looked peaceful now, but he knew that peace was temporary. Captain, came a voice behind him. Commander Kate. Walsh, his second in command, approached with a datapad. Final casualty report. How many did we lose? Ross asked, though he already knew the answer. 0, sir. Not a single shot was fired. Ross nodded. That had been the plan, but plans rarely. Survived contact with the enemy. The fact that they'd convinced an entire Vex fleet to retreat without violence was almost unbelievable. What's the status of the mining operation? Colonel Park reports all defensive systems are online and functioning. The orbital platforms performed exactly as designed. The Vex never realized they were looking at the most advanced weapons systems humanity has ever built. Ross smiled grimly. The Shing colony on Blue 7 was indeed mining rare metals needed for humanity's most advanced weapons. But it was also a testing ground for new military technology, disguised as a civilian operation. Sir, Walsh continued, we're receiving priority communications from Earth Command. Put it through to my ready room. Minutes later, Ross found himself facing Admiral Chun on the holographic display. Chun was head of human military intelligence, and her expression was serious. Captain Ross, outstanding work. The Vex fleet's retreat has been noted by every major power in the galaxy. But we need to discuss what comes next. Yes, ma'am. The Vex will be back, and they won't come unprepared this time. Actually, we don't think they will come back. At least not directly. Ross raised an eyebrow. Ma'am? We've been monitoring Vex communications. Their high command is in complete panic. They're pulling fleets back from conquered territories, consolidating their forces. They think we're planning an invasion. Are we? Admiral Chun was quiet for a moment. That depends on them. Captain, I'm going to share something with you that's classified at the highest levels. The encounter at Blue 7 wasn't random. We've been planning this for 3 years. Planning what, exactly? The end of the Vex Empire. Ross felt a chill run down his spine. Ma'am? Captain, humanity has been in space for barely 2 centuries, but we've already encountered 17 different species. Of those 17, 12 were conquered or enslaved by the Vex Empire. 3 others live in constant fear of Vex expansion. Only the Altari Confederation and ourselves have remained free. She paused, bringing up a galactic map. Red areas showed Vex territory. It covered nearly half the known galaxy. The Vex Empire is a cancer, Captain. They conquer, enslave, and destroy everything they touch. They've turned entire star systems into slave labor camps. They've committed genocide against species that resisted them. And you want us to stop them. I want us to free the galaxy, Captain. But not through conquest, through liberation. Ross studied the map. How? The same way we handled the fleet at Blue 7. We let them see our strength. Then we offer them a choice. Surrender or face the consequences. And if they choose to fight? Admiral Chun's expression grew cold. Then we show them why humans survived. The War of Extinction, the AI Rebellion, and the Plague Years. We show them what happens when you threaten everything we care about. Ross had heard the stories, of course. Humanity's early history in space had been marked by disasters that would have destroyed other species. Instead, each catastrophe had made humans stronger, more adaptable, more dangerous. What about the other species? The ones currently under Vex control? We've been in secret contact with resistance movements on 12 Vex-controlled worlds. They're ready to fight for their freedom. They just need someone to show them it's possible. The plan was beginning to make sense. Use superior technology and strategy to break the Vex psychologically, then support liberation movements across their empire. Ma'am, what you're describing is the collapse of the largest empire in galactic history. The chaos alone could kill billions. The alternative is leaving billions in slavery, Captain. Sometimes the right choice isn't the easy choice. Ross looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, entire worlds lived under Vex oppression. Children who had never known freedom. Species slowly being bred into extinction. What are my orders, Admiral? Continue monitoring this sector. The Vex will send scouts, maybe even diplomats. When they do, I want them to understand one thing. Humanity doesn't negotiate with slavers. And after that? Admiral Chun smiled. And it was the same predatory smile Ross had given Admiral Krell. After that, Captain, we remind the galaxy why humans never stay prey for long. The communication ended, leaving Ross alone with his thoughts and the weight of what was coming. 6 months after the encounter at Blue 7, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Vex Empire, which had seemed unstoppable for 3 centuries, was crumbling from within. Admiral Krell stood in the ruins of what had once been the High Command Station. Explosions had torn through 3 levels, and emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red shadows. The Resistance, movements that Admiral Chun had mentioned, were more organized and more effective than anyone had imagined. Sir, Commander Nix appeared beside him, his uniform torn and bloodied. We've lost contact with the 4th Fleet. The Talani Resistance has taken control of their home system. And the 6th Fleet? Destroyed, sir. The humans provided the Korax rebels with weapons that cut through our ships like they were made of paper. Krell closed his 4 eyes in exhaustion. In 6 months, the Vex Empire had lost over half its territory. World after world had risen in rebellion, supported by human technology and strategy. The Empire's own brutality had created the perfect conditions for revolution. What word from Supreme Admiral Dex? He's requesting immediate evacuation to the core worlds. Sir, he wants to discuss ... terms. The word tasted like poison in Nix's mouth. The Vex Empire had never negotiated terms with anyone. They had been the ones who dictated surrender conditions. Terms with whom? The humans, sir. They've agreed to meet. 2 days later, a small human delegation arrived at Vex Prime under a flag of truce. Their ship was sleek and black, making the massive Vex orbital platforms look clumsy by comparison. Captain Ross walked into the negotiation chamber with only 2 companions, Admiral Chun and a woman introduced as Ambassador Liu. The Vex delegation numbered 20, including Supreme Admiral Dex and the entire surviving War Council. Supreme Admiral, Ross said politely, taking his seat. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Dex's 8 arms gestured angrily. You've destroyed our empire. Our fleets are scattered, our worlds in rebellion. We've given your subjects a choice. Ambassador Liu replied calmly. They chose freedom. What do you want? Dex demanded. Admiral Chun activated a holographic display showing the current galactic situation. Red Vex territory had shrunk to less than a quarter of its former size. We want peace, she said simply. But peace on our terms, which are, first, immediate cessation of all slave labor. Every conquered species is to be granted full autonomy within 1 year. Impossible. Our economy depends. Your economy depends on slavery, Ross interrupted. Build a new one. Second, Chen continued, reparations to the species you've oppressed. Technology transfers, resources, whatever they need to rebuild. Third, complete demilitarization of your remaining fleets. You can keep enough ships for system defense, but your days of conquest are over. Supreme Admiral Dex stared at them in disbelief. You're asking us to surrender everything that makes us strong. We're asking you to survive, Ambassador Liu said quietly. The alternative is the complete dissolution of the Vex state. You think you can destroy us completely? Ross leaned forward. Supreme Admiral, let me be very clear. What you saw at Blue 7 was one battle group using defensive tactics. We have 12 battle groups, and they're designed for offense. If we wanted the Vex Empire to cease existing, it would have already happened. The room fell silent. Even the proud Vex leaders could do the math. Why? Dex asked finally. Why let us survive at all? Admiral Chun studied the old Vex commander. Because we're not conquerors, Supreme Admiral. We're liberators. There's a difference. The galaxy needs order, Ambassador Liu added, but not the kind of order built on fear and slavery. We're offering you a chance to be part of something better. And if we refuse? Ross's expression didn't change, but his voice carried absolute certainty. Then tomorrow, every human battle group in the galaxy receives new orders. The Vex Empire ends in fire. The negotiations lasted 3 days. In the end, Supreme Admiral Dex signed the Treaty of Blue 7, effectively ending the Vex Empire's reign of terror. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Dex approached Captain Ross privately. I have to ask, the old Vex said. How long have you been planning this? Ross smiled. Since the first day we learned about your empire. Humans have. A saying, Supreme Admiral. Never again. We meant it. 6 months later, Captain Ross stood on the observation deck of the Vengeance, watching the first free elections on the former Vex, world of Corax 3. 12 species that had been slaves for generations were choosing their own leaders. The galaxy was still healing. It would take decades to undo centuries of oppression. But for the first time in living memory, the stars belonged to everyone. Humanity had kept its promise. They were no longer prey, and they had made sure no one else would be either.